Welcome back to the Wingspan Podcast, episode 50. I'm Doug Barak, joined by my co-host Chris Mulholland of Nets Daily and our special guest. He is the creator and host of the Side Hustle web series and co-host of the Untitled Podcast. Most importantly, he's the author of a brand new book, Hidalgo Heights, The Victims Are Taking Up Space, which just came out June 1st.
We welcome Bryan Fonseca back to the podcast. Thank you for taking some time out of your morning to join Doug and I. What's up, man? How you doing?
This is really your 50th episode?
It is.
Jesus
Big
Christ.
5-0.
That means you've been doing this for around a year, more or less.
Yeah,
right?
and the craziest thing is we used to do like every week to like every other week, and then there's some like hiccups where we did like every other week.
Mm-hmm.
So, still to put out that much content, it's amazing, and we're glad to have you on for, I guess, the third time.
Consistency is tough, man. That's what people don't get about podcasting. The hardest shit about podcasting in general is just the general consistency. Above everything else, consistency, promotion, and all that stuff. So shout out to you guys for hitting 50 episodes, because I know a lot of podcasts that start and they don't quite finish.
They come for short.
Yeah, you know what I mean? This, a big brand puts two fucking big names with each other and they think that it's going to do really well and it's going to be the next big fucking thing. And then 8 episodes later and 4 months later, you don't hear about it anymore. And then, a couple places or quite a few places that have done that, but yeah, I'm not mentioning names though. What's up, guys?
Well, it ain't hard to tell. That's not you guys. That's for sure.
No.
So, like we mentioned,
we're on 182 episodes right now.
Yeah, I was about to say they're big vets, like big.
Yo,
vets.
man, you're in the Dalmatians era right now, man.
Yeah.
102. Well, anyways, let's get right into it. So, since your last appearance, as we've talked about, you published your first book. So, how does it feel to have it finally released?
Oh fuck! I don't even know where to start. Like, if I'm being totally honest, because what's it called? In April of last year was when COVID was really bad in New York City, particularly bad. Like, this is when we were losing 1,000 people a day or something along those lines. I think that might even actually be the number. We were getting like a 5-digit amount of infections per day or something along those lines. Like, it's all a blur, because that entire spring of last year we were getting slapped up because we have people on top of people in New York City, and then obviously that trickled into the surrounding areas. During that time is when I first came up with this idea for Hidalgo Heights. I was playing NBA Street Volume 3, and the reason why I was playing that game is because even though it came out in 2005, was like, I just kind of want to see if it still worked on my 360. We had a shit ton of time on our hands, especially me, because I had accepted a job that fell through because when Rudy Gobert tested positive and they shut down the NBA, the place that I was going to be working at was like, all right, let's wait and see what happens over the next few months. Still in contact with them, and who knows what could happen down the line. But at the same time, it's like, it's an opportunity that, would have been good, but got shut down because of COVID. And basically, you have all this time on your hands. We were all watching old shit and playing old stuff and getting back into, older things that we didn't have time for before. I went to see if this game still worked. And NBA Street Volume 3, you get to control your own universe, so to speak. So I'm creating a court. And as I'm creating this court, you get to create the neighborhood around it. And as I'm creating the neighborhood around it, I start putting this idea together. And then next thing I know, 5 minutes later, I'm not playing the game anymore. I'm writing an outline for some, thing. And then I'm leaving a voice note to Dexter. And I'm like, yo, I think I'm going to like write a fiction novel or something along those lines. Like, we'll see how this next few weeks go, whatever, and then just started piecing it together. The outline took about a month. The first draft I did in about 2 months because I had a lot of time, and then just kept revamping it, and now it's finally out after many months of just making sure that all the details made sense, and so far people are fucking with it, but I need a lot more people to fuck with it so that I can just keep doing that. You know what I mean?
Well, I happen to be one of those people, and man, it was a journey, man. Like, I appreciate you, man. I'll get into my praise a little bit more later on. But it was a journey, and we're going to talk about how that like relates to your own life and how your own personal journey, your own personal culture and heritage, as I left on my Amazon review, make sure to review it. Really compels to your story personally, and I think that's really important for people, not just to write about, what you know, but how you know it. So can you talk about the process a little bit more and how you underwent something to achieve such an amazing accomplishment like this,
The
besides
process,
playing hoops digitally?
yeah, yeah, the process was just man, like well, a big part of it is actually downloading apps to keep me off of social media. Otherwise that shit would not gotten no, because like it's just so like we don't even like these social media apps like that, but we all have just this constant FOMO of like, damn, I might miss out on some cool posts or whatever. If you're on Instagram, you already know what you can get into, especially around the spring and summertime. So we'll leave that there. And it's like I had to download these apps just to like keep myself focused, and that really helped a lot. That's something that I actually should go back to, although it's hard to do it with, nowadays because like sports are actually back. It was a little easier to do it at that point because everything was shut down for those few months. And yeah, a lot of the process was just that, consuming different content, making sure that your head is in the right space creatively, so that you have those sort of proper influences so that you can take from here, remix it, and make your own little idea. And yeah, there was a lot that I wanted to get into, but I also didn't want to get into too much because then you run the risk of just overly confusing your audience. I think I found a good balance. Like the first draft of it was a little not messier, but there was this balance that I had to find between dialogue and narrative. And there was a lot more dialogue and less narrating in the first edition, to which I sort of balanced out. I feel like in this final version, I feel like I got it down the way it's supposed to be. There still is a bunch of dialogue in it, but as you read it, like, there's a lot going on, and you'll see why. And it's intended to be something that, like, and you got the vibe, Doug, because you finished it. Like, it's intended to, and it was the first thing you told me. It's intended to be something that down the line will end up becoming a TV series. I strongly believe that. So, in order for that to happen, people would need to visualize it a certain way. And I think coming away from it, I think people will have the same sort of reaction to it, because that was one of the goals I had going in.
Yeah, I've had that, like kind of like a more realistic Degrassi where they're not force feeding all these various situations.
Hmm.
It's more of a strong balance, and it's also something more for us to relate to as someone who lives, in the city and kind of vibes it out, whether or not it's directly in our bubble or not. So, what were some of your favorite moments writing this book,
Favorite moments? Finishing the
besides
shit.
finishing? Yeah.
Like honestly, finishing the shit and actually being done with it was good, because it was like, whew, all right, got the first one out there. I'm trying to work on some others, so hopefully next year I'll have at least one out, maybe two. We'll see how that goes if I get the time for that. I hope so though. I think like just these little breakthroughs that you get creatively in the middle of it. Just these little breakthroughs where it's like, oh wow, this is an idea that actually works, and then you start to refine it a little bit. I had one in particular. I'm not going to give it away because obviously, I'm trying to sell this shit and want people to read it. But there was one instance where there was something, or rather, it was a whole minor storyline that I sort of added toward the end for the last 7 or 8 chapters or whatever it was, that wasn't there initially. And I had to sort of refine that because it related back to why something mattered so much at the beginning. And I was able to find a place where it's like, all right, I can put this in here because it matters. And this is a story that needs to be told because, we'll see what happens in the next part. But like little things like that, it's just really like feeling like, all right, this is all well rounded, and you're sort of putting the finishing touches on everything, and then it's like, wait, I could actually use this, put this here, because people will be able to take something good away from that, and then we'll end up seeing what happens. So just little things like that, I would say.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of emotional draws between these characters and situations that people can kind of lean on and relate to, as we've mentioned already. So, how, like, were there any characters based on your own life experiences?
I won't say which
It's
ones.
certainly not Alberto or Albert.
I won't say which ones, but there are two, 2.5 maybe, but definitely two.
You'll
I
have
will
to tell me after
absolutely
the
say.
pod.
Yeah, yeah. I won't say which one. One of them I feel like it's obvious, but I won't say who. But I think there's definitely two because again, like here's the thing, like this is realistic fiction and this is created, but a lot of this is based off of just real stuff that happened to me or people around me or things that I know about that I was able to just adapt into this sort of story a and this sort of narrative, right? Like it was basically based off of real life experiences, good, bad, or indifferent. And yeah, I would definitely say that there are a couple characters who kind of embodied some things that I've done for better or for worse, or just how I generally am. And yeah, I'll
I,
leave it
I
at
would
that.
have to guess it's part of the core four character line, but because I don't really see you meshing too much with Albert, but maybe you can prove me wrong, man. Maybe you can prove me wrong. So,
Well,
what?
I'll
Oh,
say
okay, go,
this.
go, go. Yeah.
No, I'll say this. One of the characters is seemingly a minor character, but like becomes very important rather quickly. But we'll and that's not to like feed my own ego or whatever, because I don't think or whatever. But
Bro,
it's
your ego's
because of
so
the way
fed, man. It's
it's
all good.
no, but it's because of the way the characters utilize um that people will see where like a lot of stuff goes through this person. And yeah, I think that character in particular, there's a reason for that, I'll say.
Yeah,
Trying to
for
talk
sure.
around it, but not doing a great job.
No, it's fine, man. It's fine. So what lessons do you want readers to take away from Hidalgo Heights? I know there's a lot. There's a lot of different scenarios going through that. It's like choose your own adventure of, lessons.
Yeah, choose your own adventure is a good way of putting it. I say it is what you want it to be, kind of, or is what you how you see it, rather. It is how you see it, because I think that like while we all lean one way socially and politically, I do think that there's people on even the other side of things that they can find one character, and when you read it, you'll know which one I'm talking about, and be like, no, I like this guy, and fuck everybody else in the story, because they're kind of the like if you're me, if you're you, that'll sort of be the antagonist, that one person. But if you're of a different mindset, then you might look at that person and be like, oh, okay, no, that person is actually like instrumental into what this goes on, and I actually vibe with him more. So there's that. I would say that in terms of what people take away from it, like it is what it is how they see it. But I do think that the main thing that I'm trying to get across is like just from our perspective, the Latino perspective, and specifically Latinos in America, and how they're marginalized, how we're marginalized. It's like it starts off at the very top of everything that goes on, and it just trickles on down into like everything else. Like what we've seen sort of rise in quote unquote awareness over the last
Oh
12 to
yeah,
14
for
months,
sure.
especially throughout 2020. Like it's another angle of that, but one that I feel like is not being tackled. And I feel like this is, while it's not the first of its kind necessarily, I do think it's very unique to a lot of things we see, especially in America, since a lot of the content is, quite literally black or white. And the Latinos provide a lot of gray area, as we've seen with, how, for example, Miami Cubans vote versus New Yorkers. You know what I mean? Like two different sides of the spectrum in many regards. Not, universally, because nobody's a monolith here. But yeah, it's just there's a lot of gray area.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Like you said, right now we're looking at things in the New York City bubble, and as you said, things are different in other states and around the world. So I think that's really important for people to really realize. So when they grab your book, it may not be their personal background or something they're familiar with. So that's really, valid point. So what inspired you to write a realistic fiction novel?
Time. I will start there, like just having the time for it, because it's something I always wanted to try. Like it's something I always wanted to try, but I didn't feel like I had time for until the world shut down, put us all on our ass, and I was like, oh, I could actually do this. Um, and the main thing was like I was always one of these kids where I would play video games and really get invested in creating characters. I didn't like video games where I couldn't create a character or be very invested in one character, and I would write these little short stories about these characters I would create in like Fight Night 2004, or in like Madden '05 or NFL 2K5 rather. Like I would just get really invested into creating these characters, and to some degree, that's still the case. Like when I create games, like I like being able to like, create players and actually like come up with some sort of backstory about them in my head on the school they went to and all the people that they've sort of came across in their life. Like I've just always been that person. The main characters in this story, I created them in a video game first and sent them to the people at Mel Projects who I self-published through
Well, video
NDA.
game.
They were able to like uh put it into what it is. That's why the cover looks like a video game. Um I don't know if I want to say what video games. Would that be giving something away? I'm not.
I mean, I don't remember that being in the story. To me, it's like Sims-esque.
No, no, no. It wasn't included in the story, but it's just I want to give the people my sauce, like on how
I
it
know
sort
what
of
you
went.
mean,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I don't know. To me, it's kind of
I
Sims.
I'll tell you off mic, but I'll say this: like GTA 3 and The Sims were two. Like that's what I heard from people in terms of what the cover gave them. And
True.
that was intentional because like I we talked about a couple different concepts, and that was the one that I liked the most because it looked most like a video game. And while the story is not about video games at all necessarily, although there are a couple, more than a couple references to certain games and things like that, I did want the cover to sort of highlight that because like that's for me, that's where I get my creativity come from, and that's where like it's something that I still find time to play something like not every single day, but a lot of days if I get the chance to.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So when can we expect a sequel? I don't anticipate, and I certainly hope there's not another pandemic. But you know, let's hope we don't need that to start writing again.
Nah, I mean I'm already working on the second one, but it's just harder to like get the same amount of time for it or whatever. So some things need to break right, let's just say, in order for me to like work at it at the rate that I would like to, because it's a
Yeah.
little more challenging, especially when you know what? Never mind. I'll say this. I'm expecting to have the next one out sometime next year at the very latest the year after, but sometime next year because I do have another idea for something that I have not yet started writing, but I'm sort of like, you know, doodling an outline for where I don't know what the timeline is going to be, which one's going to come first, which one is not, but I expect to have both of those sort of ready within the next couple years. And by couple, I literally mean couple isn't two. Because some people use couple and they mean like four, and I hate that shit because that shit bothers me. It's not a couple. But yeah.
Mm.
For sure, for sure. And most importantly, when are you signing my copy, bro? When are you
When I
Mine
see
signing it?
too.
when I see you guys in person,
All
when I
right,
see you
I'll
guys,
catch you at
I'll
Pig
tweet.
Beach,
Wow.
man. Well, it
But
was a
yeah,
pleasure talking about your book, bro. If there's any last words, and I don't mean that in such a dark way,
yeah.
spit it out. If not, let's talk some hoops.
Just buy it on Amazon. It's 19.99, and a good chunk of the money goes directly to me because it is self-published, copywritten by me, and rate review 5 stars, and help your boy out. You know what I'm saying? That's really it. Trying to move this thing and have some big plans for that and some other stuff. So hopefully people get it, rate review it 5 stars, and most importantly enjoy it and take some things away from it.
Yes, sir, and all that stuff will be in the description below, so go check it out. But
You go.
let's talk some hopes, Brian. With the NBA playoffs heating up, let's recap the first round, Brian and Doug. So let's start off with the Eastern Conference. What were some of your biggest surprises in your opinion thus far?
Um, the Atlanta Hawks to some degree. I didn't think that they would take out the Knicks in 5, although in hindsight, probably should have seen something like that coming, or at least 6, given that Mitchell Robinson wasn't there. And Mitchell Robinson is a big part of what the Knicks do, is probably their fourth best player, when he's healthy. They have Nerlens Noel playing center. And as opposed to having Nerlens Noel playing center, you would have him playing backup center, have him playing like 20 to 18 minutes a game. Mitchell Robinson will be something like 28, 30 minutes a game, and you wouldn't see as much Taj Gibson at the 5, and he's not really a natural 5. So you got guys playing out of position because that's what happens when guys get hurt, and everyone else has to sort of, step up with this next man up mentality. So that really hurt them, I think, more than people are letting on. But at the same time, Atlanta took advantage of it in a way that I didn't expect. Trae Young played really well. I thought that they would lose to the Sixers in 5, and as we can see, that series is already 2-2, so that's not going to happen. It's still entirely possible that they lose in 6, but I give Atlanta credit for, with DeAndre Hunter out now, just sort of taking advantage of, you know, everything that's come their way in the playoffs so far. So I would start there.
Yeah, especially with the Embiid fatigue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how do you think Trae Young has accepted that being that villain?
I hope I hope he leans into it more. Like, we need more assholes in the NBA. Like, everybody's fucking nice. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're all friendly. They all work out with each other and shit. Like, this is why I like Jimmy Butler, because, like, I mean, he has friends around the league too, but there's a specific kind of dude that he's friends with, you know? Like, he's cool with Kawhi Leonard being one, Kyle Lowry being another, evidently Bam. You know what I mean? He loves Goran Dragic. Like, we need more guys in the NBA who can embrace these villain roles, because it makes it more interesting, because now it's like, oh, okay, like, think about in boxing, right? How Floyd Mayweather becomes super famous and corners the market on pay-per-view, and really is the guy that sort of is responsible for a lot of what we see today, in many respects. But people paid to watch him lose, and he never did. But people paid to watch him lose. The same thing with LeBron going to the finals almost 10 straight years or whatever it was, right? Like, people wanted to watch him lose when he got to the finals, and a lot of other people wanted to see him win when he got to the finals. Like, regardless, like, you need those kind of guys in sports. I'm not saying Trae Young's going to rise to that. I don't necessarily see that. And I'm becoming more of a fan of his game now, but I was a lot more wait and see early on. But we need more villains in these sports. So anybody who can lean into that and back it up, I'm all here for it.
I agree with that. And then what about the Western Conference? What has surprised you thus far in the first round?
I wasn't surprised by Denver beating Portland, and I definitely wasn't surprised by them tiring out in round 2. The Lakers, like it. I didn't actually think that they would lose in the first round, even with all the injuries, because it's like you just don't expect a playoff to go on without LeBron. And him having been there in the first round and then being out is still a little weird, but he's gonna go fuck with the Monstars or some shit now, so whatever.
Goon Squad.
Yeah, whatever. I don't remember fucking what's the shit called? Space Jam. I saw that shit when I was mad little. I saw that shit when I was mad little, and I'm not like an enormous cartoon guy. Although I did hear the Static Shock.
Yo, what's on your shirt, bro? Cartoon anime, bro? Gengar?
That's different.
Or is that coughing, actually?
No, this is coughing. Gengar got his different eyes. You know what I mean? No, it's a little different. See, but here's the thing: like, Pokemon had a better anime than, like, Yu-Gi-Oh, for example. I mean, no, Pokemon didn't have a better anime than Yu-Gi-Oh. Pokemon had better games. Yu-Gi-Oh had the better anime. You know what I mean? It's just because Ash was we're not even gonna get into this shit. But Ash used to fucking piss me off. He would catch great Pokemon and then give them away. Like, get the fuck out of here! Like, what are you doing? Fuck, man. Anyway, like, what? But in terms of surprises in the Western Conference, like, I thought Dallas had the Clippers on the ropes, and then you just sort of remember Kawhi Leonard reminds you who the fuck he is, and then takes him out single-handedly. Uplifts the Clippers in a way that you almost forgot he was capable of, because of how they got eliminated in the playoffs last year, and because we haven't seen Kevin Durant do it in so long. We had a sort of similar spiritual experience to what he did last night. So I would say Kawhi Leonard doing that. Unfortunately, he's going to be out for Game 5, and we'll see, because he has a knee sprain, and that ain't fun. But a lot of injuries these playoffs.
You hinted at it right there. Let's talk about some KD. So what stood out to you about KD's 49 point, 11 assists, 10 or what is it, 17 rebounds, 10 assists performance?
Giannis not guarding him.
Yeah.
Like, I am super immensely fucking tired of giving out Defensive Player of the Year to centers just because motherfuckers aren't really, like, studying what people can do defensively. Like, the last 25 Defensive Players of the Year have been centers. I mean, not all of them. Let me rephrase that. The last 25 Defensive Players of the Year have been mostly centers. 19 of them have been centers. Giannis, not listed as a center. He's a power forward in that equation. Probably should be playing center, but that's another discussion. and you're the defensive player of the year, defending defensive player of the year, whatever. You're a defensive player of the year, and you don't decide to try to guard Kevin Durant one time. Like, I understand he had 5 fouls, but standing by the corner with Joe fucking Harris, who's 2 for 11, doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, that shit was annoying. And then Giannis is like not even trying to go. Like, if you're the defensive player of the year, you got to try and stop that shit from happening. Whatever. Like, I'm not saying he would have stopped Kevin Durant. I'm not saying he would have actually even like done anything. But would I trust him beyond PJ Tucker, who is a defensive player of the year and who's not in that equation? Like, I'm tired of that. If you're the defensive player of the year, you need to be trusted to get those stops when your team needs them. And he didn't do that. Now he's saying he wants to step up and take the challenge in Game 6. And like, all right, cool. Like, we'll see. But a bigger problem that I have is, like, in this league in general, stars aren't matching up with stars as much because everybody's switching everything and, you know, things of that nature. And everyone's trying to be super sophisticated with their schemes and things like that. And on some level, you just got to fucking guard your man. Like, you just got to go at somebody one-on-one, because this is what happens in these situations. When everything breaks down, schemes get thrown out the window, and you just have to see who's better than who. And Kevin Durant was better than Giannis by a lot last night. And you kind of felt it once the Nets cut the lead to 4. You were like, oh God, Milwaukee's not gonna generate any late game offense here. And the other team is Kevin Durant. James Harden's out there. It's kind of a decoy. Play 46 minutes, has a hamstring. James Harden's out there. You're not expecting a ton from him. But at the same time, they have Kevin Durant. And that's all they really needed, because who was out there trying to create late game buckets for Milwaukee? Drew Holiday. And probably
they went
Chris Middleton.
ISO, and that's not their game.
That's the point, right? Like,
48 minutes of Kevin Durant.
It's
bro,
trying to be super sophisticated, and you got to do this and match them up here. And it's like, no, sometimes you just got to go at somebody one-on-one. And motherfuckers ain't doing that as much as they should be.
I agree with that completely. And then, so the other news of the day, Chris Paul and Kawhi Leonard. Penny, for your thoughts.
I mean, Jalen Rose says Chris Paul's been vaccinated, so he doesn't expect that to be a long-term thing. And hopefully Chris Paul is okay. And, you know, maybe he just came in contact, because it didn't say that he tested positive for COVID. It says he's entering the health and safety protocols. And nobody wants to see Chris Paul not play the rest of the playoffs, except if you're rooting for the Utah Jazz or Los Angeles Clippers, perhaps. Especially the Clippers, because you don't want to get beat by that dude after you got rid of him. And with Kawhi Leonard, look, he injury history largely around his knees, and you know, he has a knee sprain, and you kind of knew it. You saw the tweak. He banged into Joe Ingles, it looked like, on that one play, and then shortly thereafter pulled himself out of the game. I think he pulled himself out of the game, or was pulled out of the game. Regardless, he did come out slightly earlier than you expected, because the game wasn't out of reach yet. They were up, I think, 12 or 14 with 4 minutes left. So you were probably in the clear, but at the same time, you wouldn't take out your best player at that point in the game. So, I mean, hopefully he can play in Game 6, because they're going to need him regardless. And look, people laugh at Paul George, and I definitely have. I mean, he's done a lot of things worthy of laughing. The playoff P commercial, blowing a kiss to the model on FaceTime. You know what I mean? Like, there's just been, you never seen that photo before? All right, I'm going to leave it there. Some other rumors around one porn star in particular that I'm going to leave that in the air. And yeah, like, he's just done some things that people have routinely pointed out and made fun of, those things in particular. And I think he can still come through and have a big game and sort of power them to victory. Like, a lot of people would say that he's probably as good as, if not better than, Donovan Mitchell. So he would need to prove that. And, you know, we'll see.
I agree with that. And then, what's your opinions on the second round? Clearly a little deep into it. And then the second part of that is, what's your predictions for the conference finals?
Second round, look, I still think Milwaukee could come back and do this. I just don't think they will. And I think the Nets probably even end this in Milwaukee. I actually would sit James Harden for Game 6. Be like,
some people were talking about that. What did you think about Reggie Miller's comments that he should rest both Kevin Durant and James Harden? I thought Reggie Miller's like a little crazy. I get it. Like, especially Harden, fine. You can win me over that argument. Although I like him as a decoy, even though he doesn't have his legs under him.
Yeah, I mean,
but like,
The thing is, I would be fully confident in just having Kevin Durant out there in Game 6, and if he doesn't come through, whatever, if it gets out of hand like Game 4 did, and you just wave the white flag early, and then you recoup in Game 7, it's like they're not. If I'm Steve Nash, I'm like, all right, let's try it out. James Harden, you sit. Kevin Durant, we're gonna watch you. Whatever. Let's see if we have enough here to sort of end this tonight. If we don't, we'll wave the white flag early because we know that we're gonna beat their ass in Barclays Center in Game 7. Because why would I have any confidence that Milwaukee's gonna win a road game? They haven't yet, and they
Neither
haven't shown
team at either house.
the ability to create late game offense effectively at Barclays Center. So I would challenge them to do that. So no, I wouldn't sit both Kevin Durant and James Harden, but I would definitely sit James Harden for Game 6 because he look, good job as a decoy, got 8 assists, albeit in 46 minutes, got 8 assists, was a nice playmaker there, but you also just don't want to run the long-term risk. And he was clearly not 100%, probably not very close. So I would sit Harden for Game 6, but Durant could play. Just make sure he gets his rest and ices up and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then conference finals. Give me some predictions.
Let me see. So I'll just say Nets versus Philly. I'm gonna stick with Philly. I'm not picking Atlanta to go to the conference.
Pick Atlanta for a second. You were thinking about it. I was like, oh no.
No, unless something tragic happens to Embiid. Like right now, he's playing with fatigue. So if they eat him up bully ball, we'll see. Because he went 0 of 12, and the only time he scored was free throws. Like, come on, man. Come on.
I don't think that's gonna be, excuse me, something that sustainable, but it might be. And if this goes 7, Philly's gonna be in trouble because Joel Embiid could just tweak his knee and then he's out for the rest of the game, and then who knows. But I'm gonna roll with Philly. And in the Western Conference, I contemplated having the Clippers coming out of the whole Western Conference, but I'm sticking with Phoenix. And as far as Clippers Jazz, I think so. My head is saying that the Jazz are going to now take it because Kawhi Leonard might not even return for this series. But I'm going to roll with the Clippers because I really don't want to see the Jazz in the Western Conference Finals. Like, I'm just not interested in that at all.
Come on, man. Mike Conley might come back. He was inspired by James Harden.
I like Mike Conley. I like Donovan Mitchell. I'm just not very interested in watching the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference Finals. Like, me personally, just given the alternative, there's no disrespect to them, but I'd just rather see the Suns versus the Clippers. I'd rather see Chris Paul versus his old team. Like, that's so much more interesting to me. Suns versus Jazz would be a great series. Like, it has the potential to be a great series, and both those teams match up in an interesting way. They've had very entertaining regular season games. And in terms of the theater, though, what I want is Chris Paul versus the Clippers. That's what I want.
For sure. I mean, narratives, always win the day. So who do you have coming out of each conference and winning all the season? Obviously, things can change. I mean, that's why we're dressed differently today in this recording, because things happened. Yeah. We got to react.
Yeah. Suns versus Nets. And, I mean, I'm still weary about what the Nets' sort of injury prospects will be. But if they have Durant and one of the other two guys, which will probably be James Harden, because I really don't know what to expect out of Kyrie potentially returning. Like, that'll probably be
one of his best seasons, healthiest, best overall. It's crazy. It's terrible what happened to Kyrie. Yeah. And James Harden's an Iron Man. The fact that he did what he did last night is crazy. So.
Yeah, I mean, coming off his most injury-plagued season, and as guys are getting more and more injured, like this is something. Like, I'm not surprised that everyone struggled with injuries to some degree. Like, we've talked about the Anthony Davis had the Achilles, and LeBron had the high ankle sprain. Jimmy Butler had COVID, lost 12 pounds, came back and made All NBA. Kevin Durant was out for a couple months, still hasn't been healthy for 2 months straight yet. So we'll keep that in mind going forward. Kyrie Irving's hurt now, and he's been hurt. I think he hasn't finished 3 of his last 5 or 6 seasons, something along those lines. And, James Harden, at some point, he was going to get hurt because he's taken so much contact over the last few years and played so many games, and the miles just catch up. And he also played into the second round of the bubble last year. So I think that I wasn't surprised to see that the Nets have struggled with injuries because I kind of expected that. And that's the risk you run with a top-heavy roster. But at the same time, if Kevin Durant is out there, specifically if Kevin Durant is out there, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, you know who he is. So what's your number? If it's Nets and Suns, we going 6? We going 7? We going 5? Gentleman sweep?
Who uh who would have home court there? Would it be Phoenix?
It would be Phoenix. I think record-wise, it'd be Phoenix.
Yeah. Regardless,
That's
I would
interesting.
I would say Nets in 6. I would say Nets in 6 if that were to assuming if Kevin Durant's not healthy, if Kevin Durant's not healthy, I would contemplate picking the Suns. Depending on Kyrie's ankle and James Harden's hamstring injury. But let's say we were starting the series like right now, like right at this very moment, I would go Nets in 7 actually.
Well, what a
Because
narrative that will be. Steve Nash once again does not deliver a title to Phoenix.
yeah. I mean, look, that's interesting there. The whole Kevin Durant and Chris Paul thing. Jay Crowder, I'm sure, is gonna try to fight everyone in the big three, and that's why I like him a lot. Because
Mike
like
D'Antoni.
you got to be that dude, Mike D'Antoni. Amari.
Yeah, Mari.
Mari Stoudemire, Ime Udoka.
Sean
Yeah.
Marks.
I think he used to play with the Suns.
Sean Marks, I believe, was part of one of those rosters.
Sean Marks, yeah, a lot of former fit. Hey, I don't. That'd be interesting. Conspiracy theory could jump on that one. But yeah, I would roll with the Nets in that series. Although, I don't know what they're gonna do about DeAndre Ayton. Like that'll be an interesting matchup for them.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll finally unleash
Yeah,
DeAndre.
because the thing with him is like unlike Giannis, who actually stay in the paint and try to like score from there instead of dribbling the ball 20 feet out,
Aiden's got a jump shot.
thinking he's a running back and shit. Like Aiton's gonna be a tough matchup for them. So I think
And Brian, I gotta get your thoughts on this. Scott Brooks and the Wizards are no longer.
Oh,
How do you
you
feel
got
about that?
another.
what the fuck is going on, yo?
That's 6 head coaching openings right now.
Oh my
And
god!
two
And
this
Van Gundy
morning.
was also this morning.
Yeah, that means Boston. Was it Boston, Indiana, New Orleans,
Orlando, Portland, Washington.
Yeah.
Hashtag this league, Mark Stein.
Yeah.
It is, as of this recording, it is not even 11. It is not even 8:30 on the West Coast. It is not even 11:30 on the East Coast. Like, oh, all right. Let me give you a couple quick things on these coaches, right? So Stan Van Gundy.
And if you got any replacements, toss them out now, man. The ball is in your court.
Stan Van Gundy, I didn't think was gonna work in New Orleans. I thought that was kind of weird. I actually like Stan Van Gundy a lot as like an interview. You guys know
He's a great advocate.
I listen to every Dan Le Batard episode, and he's phenomenal when they bring him on there and stuff. Like he has exceptional basketball insight, but in terms of coaching in this generation, that may be something that he can no longer do at a high level. And getting him to coach Zion and Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball was just a weird move to me. I didn't think that he was sort of ideal for that. I thought he would have been better suited to be, maybe a top assistant on a team like the Clippers or the Heat or something along those lines, or even, a head coach of like of the Wizards, because I would have been intrigued by the Stan Van Gundy Russell Westbrook pairing just for entertainment purposes only. Look, I mean, I saw Becky Hammond's name float around out there. I was saying that this is somebody who can coach in perhaps Boston or Indiana. We've heard David Vanterpool, the assistant from Minnesota, formerly of Portland, his name get thrown around out there. Chauncey Billups is a candidate for some of these jobs. Teresa Witherspoon is a name I've seen get thrown out there. Like there's
Sam
a lot.
Cassell.
Sam
Big kid been floating around like nonstop.
Sam Cassell, who's been an assistant forever, like Patrick Ewing was, and has obviously, paid more than enough dues. I think Sam Cassell should get one of these jobs, and hopefully not the Orlando one, because they change coaches every few years. Like I hope that he actually gets like a good job. I actually think Sam Cassell would be a good Wizards hire.
Well, I was thinking Boston. Thinking Boston.
Or Boston. I think Chauncey Billups. I would like to see Chauncey Billups go to
Portland.
Yeah, I was thinking Portland, maybe Boston too.
Big shot with a big shot.
Yeah. I mean, I think I didn't think that Mike D'Antoni. I don't think he should get the Portland job, because that's not what they need. They need defense.
Yeah, they need someone that's a little rounded.
Big kid Atkinson's been floating around again. Atkinson.
Oh my God! Yeah. Look,
Orlando.
Kenny Atkinson should be a head coach. Like that dude is a good head
coach.
I
want to see if he can fix Russell Westbrook's shooting.
The
But I don't
Nets,
see that fit with the Wizards working out though.
It's tough.
among
I
the
see Orlando.
among the things that got the Nets here, Kenny Atkinson, if not for what he helped do, the Nets would not be in the position to get
Correct.
Kevin Durant,
Not at all.
Kyrie, and subsequently James Harden. Kenny Atkinson and D'Angelo Russell, both near the top of that list, along with others who you guys know. But Kenny Atkinson deserves a lot of credit for what they did in helping get them to where they got to. And then they went to Jacques Vaughn route. Jacques Vaughn, another name who's probably going to be floating around some of these discussions
Well,
because
the Nets have a bench after this season. Like that's the thing about Sean Marks. Like he came from the Spurs tree, but bro, his own tree is quite special.
Yo, that's the thing about good teams, though. Like
He's a
like
gardener.
the teams who are good regularly, like when the Lakers are good, the Heat get this a lot. The Nets are going to start getting it. Like your assistants are going to be in these sort of circles from now on. You know what I mean? Portland, because they've gone to the playoffs every year. Like this, before this year. I mean, like yeah, this is something. Boston back in the day, they had Thibodeau on the
Clippers
bench.
are currently
What I mean?
hoarding some.
Yeah. So this is what happens. Like I think that
Even Doc with Philly's got some good names on his bench.
yeah, like Jacques Vaughn could get a head coaching job. Ime Udoka, who's been an assistant for a while, he is somebody who's going to get looks as well. Mike D'Antoni, like the Nets could lose a bunch of assistants. So
For sure.
Right.
And the last thing I got to say, I know you're not a big Marv Albert guy, but I think he called maybe one of his best games last night.
yeah, I mean, well, the current version of Marv
Yeah.
Albert.
No, sorry, I don't mean to get rid of his whole career, but last two.
Marv Albert is one of the voices of my childhood because of NBA, just on TV, and then NBA Live. He was always the play-by-play announcer. So, but like I think that like you get to a point where it's like, all right, like somebody else could be in that seat. You know what I mean? Like Kenny Harlan's exceptional. Iron Eagle, I mean, Iron Eagle, you already know. Is one of the best, and he had a phenomenal call of what was it, Kawhi's dunk.
Yeah.
Major Kawhi Leonard.
No.
over Derek Favors. Yeah, like and then like it just takes a spot from somebody else. But at the same time, like yeah, I thought he definitely didn't bother me on the broadcast. I didn't hear him like breathing heavily on the microphone and smacking his lips and doing things like that you hear him do.
But okay.
Probably because they were in the arena actually. So I thought Marv called a great game. And it turned into a great game because I mean Kevin Durant had one of the, I don't know how many, but one of the best playoff performances that I could recall seeing.
He's definitely
some people
alone in one of the records he set last night, whatever it was.
Some people were comparing it to the LeBron 45 in Boston, which I'm not going that far, but like
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far either.
give me because road back against the wall is a little bit different, deeper into the playoffs, a little bit different, but it can't be that far off. So
I mean, it was the best individual performance I saw, and I saw Kyrie with that accurate 51 versus the Bulls, and that was a crappy team. This is the playoffs, man. Like
I would say it's probably Durant's best playoff game ever, right? Maybe and in turn, maybe his best individual game ever. Like think about that. If that's Kevin Durant's best game ever, and that's Kevin Durant, like if that's his best game ever, then yeah, we're talking about one of the signature performances in at least recent NBA history.
Yeah, NBA Top Shot, that man. It's priceless.
Yeah.
But anyways, brother, thank you again for joining us. Really glad we got to re-record, as you rightly pointed out. Enjoy the rest of your day, brother. Plug your book away. Plug Ain't Hard to Tell. Plug everything you do well.
Yeah.
Away.
Hopefully people didn't skip this part. Hidalgo Heights out now on Amazon. The Victims Are Taking Up Space, realistic fiction novel. It covers everything imaginable and how sort of American constructs, really hinder people on the bottom and connects things that you don't really think are connected. Has sports and a lot of other things involved as well, and a lot of cursing, so beware of that. And the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast weekly with Dexter Henry. We just dropped our 182nd episode where we talked about
brother.
Yeah, we talked about a woman who doesn't shower. We talked about Vernon Golson beating up people outside of a club, and he was justified in doing so. And we also talked about, the NBA playoffs and Simone Biles and the importance of wanting to take a plate back from a barbecue. So, yeah.
Oh. Well, guys, all that information will be in the description below. But remember to send over any suggestions, questions, comments, or thoughts on any of our content by sending an email to wingspanpodcast@gmail.com. And do not forget to follow us on our social media. But most importantly, make sure you subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening service. And as for next time, stay classy, take care, and please get vaccinated, people.
Yes, sir.